Let the time being shown 6 o'clock. All members are present. I'm gonna let me find my my little reading here before we start this meeting. So, all right. First of all, here we go. I'm gonna read my Governor Baker's order here first. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 2nd, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general laws, chapter 30A, section 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of Freetown Zoning Board of Appeals will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general public and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Freetown website, www.freetownmass.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting or participate in the public hearing may do so in the following manner: downloading Zoom and entering the meeting ID below, calling the number listed below, entering the meeting ID listed, or by going to the Zoom website. No in-person attendance. Members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technology means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Freetown's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record or proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, I'm gonna call a meeting to order for the, I don't know if I opened up the meeting before, so I'm gonna entertain a motion to get this meeting going.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to open the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great.
Do you have to do a roll call on that?
Yes.
Oh, yes, let's do a roll call. Sorry. Nick Veloza,
Yes.
Rob Joes,
Aye.
Sweet Magnet.
Yes.
Okay, Jim Freight, aye. Okay, we are in business, and let's get right to it. Myra Sweat, is that how we pronounce your last name?
Sweet.
Sweet. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Let's get started. You want to do an in-law apartment at 4 Tanglewood Drive in Freetown.
Correct.
Let's see. Has everybody seen the plans? Nils, I don't know if you can share the plans. I don't know if you have anything. I'm not sure.
They're on the zoning board
They're on it.
department
Okay.
page.
Can
on
you
the-
say where? Can you say where they are, because you're better at?
Yep. If you go to the top right of the zoning board of appeals page on Freetown's website, the Freetown website, it's under zoning board of appeals virtual meeting information under news and announcements.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Nils. Hi, Jeff. Nice to see you tonight.
Are you?
Good, good. Okay, okay, Myra, would you like to start and just give us a quick description on everything that you want to do, starting with who the family member is and everything else?
Sure. So a little background. I've lived here in this house since 1976. I raised my family here. I have 3 children who had all moved out and started their own families. And almost 2 years ago now, my daughter, who had married and was living in Italy, she and her husband separated and she moved back home with me. She didn't have the means to live on her own at that time. So she's been living with me with her 2 children. So we had thought about refinancing and for me and my partner to move into a smaller home, and she was going to take over this home. But the housing market is just so crazy right now that that really isn't feasible for us. So we thought about building an in-law type apartment for us, and she will go on living in this house with her kids.
Okay,
And it's, you know, it's been a hardship for her. And it's not always easy, everybody living together. So we all kind of need our own space. And, you know, I'm semi-retired now. I'm the built-in babysitter, which is a big help for her. And
absolutely.
so it just seemed the most feasible way to go about it.
Again, I always say that's what our bylaw is for, family members, to ease some of the burdens of care, and whether the care or finances or anything like that, that they can get under the same roof. So we encourage that. Okay, I see the
When I'm
spaces.
getting older, she's gonna be here for me, so.
Yeah, yeah. I see the spaces above the garage.
Correct.
The garage isn't built yet, right? It's an existing garage?
No, it's gonna be a two-car garage
Mhm.
with the living space over it. It's about 730 square feet, I think, 720, something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, which is under the 1,000 that we require, maximum size.
There's gonna be a common entrance through the house here.
Okay. So you got the 1 bedroom, you got an office. I don't know if that'll be a 2nd bedroom eventually, but
No, it's just a second room that we thought maybe if the kids needed to sleep over, they could bring their sleeping bags. But it's gonna be mostly an office with a desk,
Mhm.
bookcases.
okay. I have no questions. Anybody else from the board would like to ask any questions or any concerns?
This is Nick. I don't have any concerns. It's under the 1,000. Something that doesn't involve this board, but the building inspector may require a second means of egress. But again, that's not something for us to decide. So I have no questions regarding the in-law apartment.
Okay.
Just to clarify, if I could, the garage will be attached to the main house.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay. I have no more questions. I see everything here is in line. The need is in line, the size is in line. And I don't see any reasons to hold this up, or anybody, I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Chairman, is there anyone from the public that has a question or anything?
Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak? It's your time. If you would like to say something, you can go right ahead. Like, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand. I'll give you a couple of seconds.
Hi, Jim, it's Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah, once they submit the plans, I'm gonna review them again and just make sure like everything meets the codes, the second egress and that second room, I will really look at that. It may be a doorway without a door, just so it's not considered a bedroom.
Okay.
There- it's an open floor plan, right, you know, right now.
Yeah, okay.
That's
Yeah,
fine. You'll be able to
don't
work that out with Jeff.
right in front of me, but I'll review them again and just make sure it meets code, building codes as well with any egress and so on, so.
Yep, absolutely.
What is the square footage of the primary house that's currently there? Do we know that?
I think it was 1,900 square feet, 1,798. I did look that up.
Okay. So it is subordinate in size to the primary
It-
house.
Yes, it was. It
It
was.
is under 1,000 square feet, so it meets
Yeah.
all our requirements.
The only other thing I saw was, I know you got to put in the driveway. I couldn't tell if you added two extra spaces, because you got to have a couple extra spaces for you guys. I'm not sure if the garage would qualify. Garage could probably qualify for the extra parking spaces, I would think, since you're building the garage.
Is that,
Uh,
oh,
With the in-law apartment, you have two main things: is the square footage, you're 1,000 square feet or under, and that you have to have 2 additional off-street parking spaces at, for the apartment, obviously, because you're moving more people in, they want you to have a little more parking space. So, I don't see that's a problem since you are putting the garage in. How many stall garage, that 2-stall garage?
2.
Yeah, so that, I think that qualifies for the additional, parking spaces that you'll need.
Right now, the driveway is L-shaped.
Yep, I'm comfortable with that. All right. So, that being said, I will, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the in-law apartment as submitted for Tanglewood Drive.
Second.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded to approve the, special permit for, the in-law apartment at 4 Tanglewood Drive in Freetown, Mass. I will take a roll call vote. Nick Velozza,
Aye.
Rob Joes,
Aye.
Jim Freites says aye. And the motion passes and your permit is, or your special permit is approved.
Thank you.
You are very much welcome.
Thank you.
You will have, what will end up happening is I have, once the paperwork gets put together, I'll come down and sign it. You will be able to, 21-day wait. Is there a 20, I think there's, Nils, is there a 21 days for this too?
Yep, there's an appeal
Yep, 21
period.
days, yep. And then you'll take that and you will register that at the, in Fall River, the Registry of Deeds. So it's registered on your deed. Process is, permit's good for 5 years. After 5 years, Jeff will renew it with a phone call between you two, that everything is still the same, and he'll re-grant it, and as long as everything's the same, and then that'll go for another 5 years. So that'll give you 10, and then after 10, you have to do this process again, and then we'll revisit in 10 years from now with another permit. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
All right, would you guys like to?
I
What's
think,
that, Rob?
I was gonna
No,
say,
you-
I think you have to
I didn't
close
see
the
that.
public hearing.
Yep, that's what I'm gonna do next. I don't think we have
Okay.
anything else. I was gonna take the motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing for 4 Tanglewood.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. Roll call vote. Nick Velozza,
Sorry, I was on mute, but aye.
Rob Joes.
Aye.
Swede,
Aye.
Jim Freites, aye. Motion has been made and passed. Meeting is closed. I think I probably should have done that first before we voted. That was my fault, fellas. So, accept the motion to adjourn. Anybody else got anything else that they need to?
We
You got a
have,
minute, don't you?
We have
Yep.
min-
Oh, do we have minutes for tonight, Nils?
Yep, that and the discussion on accessory apartment
Oh, yeah.
bylaw, which I would,
Okay. All right. We'll have I've read the meeting. I've read the minutes. I'm good with the minutes.
I have also.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for January 13th, 2021 and February 3rd, 2021.
What was that, January 3rd?
13th.
13th.
And what was the other one? What was the other one? What was that date? I didn't print them out.
February 3rd.
February 3rd.
Second.
A motion was made and seconded to approve the minutes for January 3rd and, I'm sorry, January 13th and February 3rd for the ZBA. Roll call vote. Nick Velozza,
Aye.
Rob Joes,
Aye.
Swede Maggot,
Aye.
Jim Freites, aye. All. Yeah, accept the motion for the minutes. All right, okay, do we need to close the meeting now? We
Yeah,
closed it,
we're-
we kind of closed it already, but I know then we took the minutes, so we should
Oh,
officially close the meeting.
didn't you just close the public hearing?
Okay, you're right. I'm sorry. My bad. All right. So next, the last thing, or the next thing on the agenda is the discussion on the bylaw. Anybody wants to speak of that? Any concerns, any thoughts? Let's throw it out there.
This is the in-law we're discussing, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, bylaw for the in-law
Yeah.
apartment.
Yep, so after last meeting, I did take a look at it, and as Bob pointed out, it does have written in there, I think it was a cooking appliance, correct me if I'm wrong, something
Yeah.
along those lines. However, we did discuss at the last meeting as well that anyone's allowed to have as many kitchens in their house
As they want. Mhm.
as they want. So I believe Jeff has mentioned in the past, he was talking about a doorway or something along those lines. And I think it's a fine line to define. I don't want to say you have to take a stove out because again, as I mentioned before, the kitchen you can have in your house, and the doorway, I mean, you go anywhere, you don't want a kitchen and open into something else either. So that's a tough one. Some people don't want it off their living room, and it makes it, I guess it makes it awkward. The only thing that kind of saves us, I think, is people come in to get the accessory apartment, so they don't necessarily design it as a second kitchen. I think you can easily transform most of the applications into a kitchen and large living area or dining room or something along those lines. So I think I'm open to the doorway item. I think that could be a good solution for that. I am opposed to saying you have to remove the kitchen equipment. I mean, if someone wants to leave that kitchen in the house they spent a lot of money on, I don't think that it's necessarily okay for us to say to take it out when it still could work as a regular kitchen that they could use in their house.
Okay. And you like the idea of what Jeff had spoken about, is not having a door separating the two units.
I think that makes sense, removing a door, because again, if they were to use it as an in-law with the kitchen there and they don't have a doorway, then yeah, I don't think anyone would want to live that close to someone to illegally rent to.
Right.
But my concern is just, are we talking you take the door off the hinges, building inspector comes in and looks at it, or are we talking about doing a cased opening? Again,
I mean, they're gonna want some privacy though. If you're gonna have your in-laws living in there, depending on how you lay it out. If I was the in-law, I think I would still want to have a little bit of privacy where I don't have the kids just running into my apartment, so I'm not sure how I feel about the doorway, and people will always put the doorway in after as well. You know how that is. Just put it in as soon as the building inspector leaves, just go put the door up. I mean, it's like,
I'm referring to after the in-law apartment is finished, whether it's 5 years or 10 years.
So you would be good with keeping the doorway there while they were living? And
Absolutely.
then removing the doorway, keeping it as a one space after. I like that idea, Nick. I like that going after that door has to be removed. And
I don't think it makes it 100% clean, but I think it's a better step than having someone rip out a kitchen that's only 5 years old.
Right. Now, so say is fines. You couldn't fine anybody either. You couldn't say, hey, you've been renting it out for a year. If you don't turn it to apartment, you do rent it out, you are subject to some kind of penalty. I don't know if we got the power to do that. I'm not sure.
Well, I think the zoning enforcement officer has the power to issue a cease and desist and then further it up with land court. I absolutely think he has the power to enforce a town bylaw.
Yeah, but what about a fine or something like that for the tenant?
Well, I'm
or
just,
the owner. That's sweet.
when the house changes hands, like I'm trying to go off what Nick is saying, when the house changes hands, isn't there a series of inspections that has to take place for that house to change hands? So if you're dealing with a house that has a accessory or in-law apartment on it, I think I'm pretty sure that the bylaw says that the in-law apartment needs to cease to exist unless they're going to apply for it again because they're have the same means of use. So I'm thinking when the house changes hands, there'll be some sort of inspection that you can use as a tool to either see that door removed or obviously the people who are buying the house are applying for an in-law or accessory apartment. Again, they would have to come through us, through the ZBA, to get the variance once again. That's
Correct, yeah. Somebody can buy a house. Like if I found if I was moving out and I wanted, if you were moving out and you had an in-law, you could just say, oh, that's a great little place. It's got the in-law apartment. I'm gonna move my parents in. They'll apply for the permit, get the special, and be fine with a whole new family moving in. That would be fine. They'll just start all over again.
on the other side of the coin. If it was someone who was just looking to buy the house to have the square footage,
Mhm.
Jeff and, his would go in and I guess inspect it and make sure that that doorway is removed in a way that would show to be permanent rather. I'm thinking.
There's one issue with that is it doesn't get me the right to go in at that point. The only eyes that I can have would be through the fire department when they do the sale of house.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
working with Neil on that. So when he does see an in-law apartment, he will notify me and then I can reach out and do an inspection at that point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
You'd normally do it as like a decommissioning inspection. So example, either the person says, XYZ is no longer there. I want to decommission the apartment, or the 5 years is up or the 10 years is up. Would you normally do a decommissioning inspection to say, okay, now you have to have the door removed and I got to witness that the door was removed in a way that's now a permanent removal and it becomes part of the whole house? Because if people don't sell the house, they just rent it. I know examples of in-law apartments that were put in legally that the person passed on and now they just rent it as an apartment and they've been living there for 20 years. Jim, know people the same way. So that's more the issue of to me is once it's in, how do you know it's decommissioned and what's the process of decommissioning it?
I think we would have to, right now, I don't have any other records of the previous that have already expired. This is something that I would have to keep a logbook at the office so we can go back and date things. That would be, because of zoning, that would be my ticket to get into to do an inspection. Other than that, again, I don't know. I don't have records other than trying to, 3,000 files, trying to pull them out to find out who has them.
Right.
And so,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what people don't understand is they're in peril if they're renting out the apartment illegally because their permit's expired or they no longer meet the qualifications for the permit and they're renting it out and there's a fire, heaven forbid, and somebody gets hurt. The homeowner's at peril because the insurance company's going to say, well, you have an illegal apartment. Your permit expired 5 years ago and you've been renting it out to somebody that's not on your permit. I don't think people understand the peril they put themselves into by
The
doing it.
insurance company won't cover their loss.
And if
Yeah,
somebody's
they'll
hurt
find a way.
because there's a fire, because there's no longer a fire break because it's supposed to be all part of the same house or something,
Right.
there is liability there.
that's the downside is an in-law apartment. I keep saying in-law instead of accessory apartment. Usually when you say accessory apartment, people think they can rent it out to anybody, but an in-law apartment, it kind of is what it says. But when they build that, there's no firewall separation,
Right.
For an in-law apartment. So yeah, I mean, if they rent it out to someone else, and there's a fire, it can do damage on both sides at that point.
Yeah, because we look at this as one residence, as one space,
Right.
not two spaces. I do like that. I like that idea of putting that into the bylaw that has to be removed. It has to be kept one space, cannot be separated. That makes a lot of sense.
After the discussion, I have one, I guess, major concern that was brought up. I mean, dating back, say, 5 years ago, Scott was in office. We've had these discussions with him. He said he was going to do a better job of keeping track of in-laws. So I know some permits are set to expire, and we don't have record of that. I mean, Jeff is new, I don't know, a year now. I'm not saying it's his fault, but how do we keep track of this if we get a new
How
building
far do we want to go
inspector?
back, I mean,
I don't
Nils
want to go, but I mean, yeah.
Nils can put a spreadsheet together, if we want him to, on what we've done the last 10 years. I don't think we've done more than, 2 or 3 a year. The most, 3 would be a lot, on a busy year, but for the most part, it's usually 1 or 2.
Right, well, we've already done 2 this year.
Yeah,
And you're right, but I know we definitely had some with Scott, and that was 5 years ago, right?
yep, yes, yes, we have.
So there has to be something that are set to expire that we need them to reapply again, or this is how everything's got lost, like Bob was talking about. 20 years ago, these were built and no one paid attention. Well, actually 50 or so in town that no one knows about, I assume. There has to be a better way of keeping it. I don't know how to do that. I don't think it's for me to say, but if maybe Nils could go back to the 5 years with the Scott and Mary, where things are getting set to expire, we can get a better handle on it at least.
I think that's a good idea. Is there a statute of limitations, Jeff, on, obviously, I wouldn't go back 20 years to see if somebody's
No.
renting, because there is a statute of limitations on these things. I'm not sure how far we could go back to build a little database to start from.
The statute of limitation actually is for the zone setbacks, and it's a 10-year statute of limitation if there's no issues with it. So if you built a shed a foot from the property line and nothing has been brought up for 10 years, that shed can stay there as long as you don't change the use. The use itself can be regulated. So if they built a garage for, let's say, storage, and after 10 years, they decide they're going to use it for something else, a little business or something.
Mm-hmm.
The location is grandfathered in at that point with a statute of limitation, but the use, they would have to go through the process of changing the use for a separate business or whatever they change the use to. And that would have to go through all the steps and, and make sure it's allowed and so on. So usually when they build a shed, a shed is usually 200 square feet or less. If they build an accessory building, that, like I said, the setback is what's statute of limitation, but not the use.
Like there was a house that just sold, I want to say last year. They actually advertised it as an in-law. It's right, it's on 79. What's that? What's the ridge, right there by Ridge Hill, where it comes out onto 79?
Richmond Road.
Yeah, Richmond Road. Is right on the right hand. I'm terrible with the roads, by the way. Right, the railroad tracks are on the left. There's a house right. It's yellow. It has a big garage in the back. And that was advertised as an in-law apartment. It was sold about a year and a half ago. I've not seen anybody come forth asking for another permit or anything for that space. So there's an example of what's going on in that house. Are they renting it out as an apartment?
And if I remember correctly, it's not attached.
No, I don't know. I've never been there. So
I think what we're really coming down to is we need some kind of decommissioning plan, that when people get these, that there's this next step, that when they're done with them, that there's a decommission, a process that they have to go by to decommission them to make sure they're not used as an illegal apartment. I think that's what we're trying to shake out here. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's where we're leading to.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Bob, and I was just wondering if we wanted to talk to the planning board about this, to put it in with, I don't know if you're more familiar, if they have any changes to the bylaws or anything, it might just be easy to discuss with them. We would obviously come up with the language and put it in there, unless, Mr. Chairman, you want to submit it from the ZBA.
I don't think I have a preference, to, that we'd have to be separate, so.
All zoning bylaws have to be reviewed in public hearing by the planning board, and a recommendation made to go to the town meeting. So it has to go through the planning board to get to the town meeting.
So the ZBA would make a recommendation to the planning board, and then the planning board would bring it to the town? to the
ZBA
town?
we would put in what we'd like to see for the bylaw, and that
Mhm.
would go in front of the planning board. They would have a public hearing. And we could do a public hearing also to get input from the public to make up the zoning, the zoning change. But then it would go to the planning board. They would have a public hearing on it, just to get comment, have their input on it, and then forward it to once it's approved, goes to the selectmen to go on the warrant for the town meeting.
Okay.
I don't know if we'd make this town meeting, because I think, Jeff, you would know better than I. Are they still taking articles for this town meeting, or is it closed already?
I believe it's closed.
I think you're right.
It closes on Monday, I think.
Oh, it
Monday
does.
coming,
Yeah.
But we won't make it.
but we
Oh,
could
this
make the fall town meeting. If we have everything in order, we can make the fall town meeting.
Yeah, I do have, Nadine gets a lot of, she goes online and stuff and sees a lot of the advertisement for houses that have in-law apartments. I believe I've been out on 2 of them. One of them had a detached garage where he put an apartment above. I went in there and I walked through, and he basically had 2 bedrooms in there. And long story short, what he ended up doing is taking out that main wall that was separating the 2 bedrooms and opening it up as a full, we called it a game room.
Okay.
So, but he still kept the kitchen and that, it kept the kitchen and stuff. The more I looked into that, I left it as one big game room, but they did have a shower there too. That was a kind of a tough thing because they were right on the water. Someone coming in the game room, they could shower and stuff. So people say, well, what about a studio apartment?
That'll happen.
You're stretching. It's a tough line to kind of draw. But I felt that by removing those walls and opening it up to one room, it was less an apartment.
Mhm.
Do we want to remove the kitchen as a criteria or try to remove the kitchen as a criteria from the zoning requirement? Because it specifically speaks to a cooking appliance in the kitchen.
Yeah,
So the bylaw is pretty clear on it.
Yes. Again, like you guys have mentioned, you can have as many kitchens as possible in your house. There's no codes against that. Now it's a detached. So now what makes that a dwelling? A shower, kitchen. Again, now you're
Yeah.
stretching it out to a studio apartment.
Yeah.
Which could be a kitchen, so if they had it, they could have a half bath without the shower. Either take the shower out or take the kitchen out.
What happens if the homeowner says to you, well, I just lost my parents who lived here and I don't have the means to do all of this work that's required of me, which could, to get rid of a kitchen, it's that, you're talking, and get rid of a bathroom, you could be forcing these people to spend $5,000 to $10,000 to make that place not to make it whole the way we think we want it to be.
Right. And again, the definition of a dwelling are those things.
Hmm.
And we're not, our bylaws don't allow two dwellings on a property.
So if I came to you and I wanted a permit, and I had a garage, an acre and a half of land, I had a big garage, and I said, guess what? I want to put a room above my garage with a kitchen and a bathroom, and it's going to be one big room. Would you allow me to do that? With no mention of an in-law apartment at all. I'm just coming
Right,
to you, and that's what I want to do.
I would feel that, yeah, I probably would go that way.
You would allow it?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
I mean, I'm.
There's pool houses all over
It's
the place.
tough for
you
me
know?
to deny something like that. I mean, it is a right to do things, but we do have bylaws about a second dwelling. Yeah, it is. That's a tough one. I mean, I just hope no one really wants to go that route.
I
For
mean,
me,
it
me,
hasn't
the
really happened that much. I don't recall.
For me,
it
the
ever.
bylaw is clear. It points to one specific thing in the bylaw as in a dwelling, and it's kitchen and cooking appliance. So the bylaw is pretty clear to that, and I think you can hang your hat on that bylaw if you wanted to, or if you had to.
Yeah.
The bylaw really doesn't speak to how many bedrooms you can have. It doesn't speak to all those other things. The bylaw is it speaks cogently to one thing, and it's kitchen and cooking appliance. Now, it says an accessory apartment has to be subordinate in size, has to be under 1,000 square feet, all those other things.
Mhm.
And it has to be in the main house, which
Yeah.
now that's why I asked the question on the last one, whether it was attached or not. Because if it was detached, it wouldn't be allowable. But it was going to attach it, so now it becomes part of the primary house's square footage. But, you know,
But
the bylaw is pretty clear when it points to certain things.
it doesn't say that you can't do it a detached apartment above a garage. It just says in a bylaw, 1,000 square feet of additional living space may be added. May be added. So that doesn't mean, that
So
doesn't
if you-
say may be converted, may be changed. It says may be added. So that's
What are you
what that
looking under?
means. I'm looking under the accessory apartment bylaw. It
Are you
says
looking
valid
at
only if you're,
what are you looking at definition of what a dwelling, what an accessory apartment is?
I'm looking at the
'Cause it's
accessory
in two
apartment
places.
bylaw, page 58, residential district, village district. I can read it. The zoning board of appeals as a special permit grant authority may issue a special permit, conversion and use of a portion, conversion.
Proportion.
Yep.
That could tell you that you can't
Yeah.
do an addition, that you can't build something on your property
Detached.
detached. So, because it's
No,
gonna
it
be
says it in the
it's gonna be a
definitions, doesn't it?
conversion. What's that?
It says it in the definition, I thought.
It's in the definition too.
Was that?
Word you- I think the
Good
word you
question.
said was a portion of the dwelling.
Conversion of a portion of the dwelling. So it's
conversion,
semantics,
yep.
whether you let somebody build it first, because we did this one time on Forge Road.
Mhm.
Forge Road. The person came in before they built the garage. We made them build the garage first, and then they came back and attached it, so now it's part of the dwelling. And
Yep.
then they asked for the accessory apartment. Really, it's semantics. They could build it, design it so it's ready to go. So when it's done building, it's attached, it's already done, and we already give them the approval versus making them come back again to do it again. So that's the boards had wrestled with that a couple of times in the past.
Yeah.
And I think we're at the point now, you're gonna build it this way, you know all the parameters, what you're gonna do, so it's allowable. We just allow them to do it that way instead of trying to convert it.
I mean, I would like that to be part of the bylaw too, and we rework it, saying that maybe it's an additional structure is not allowed, so that no one thinks that they can have a detached garage and then put something above that, because it's kind of interpretation. You know how sometimes a homeowner can bend and
it has
twist
to
the
be
words in the bylaws and say they can do something. So,
Well, that's Jeff's job, but it says
Mhm.
it says
okay.
conversion of the primary residence.
So that kind of having a detach and finishing off a room with a cooking area, now you're stretching into a second dwelling on that property.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
Mhm.
That is definitely a second dwelling to me.
So at that point, yes, you wouldn't be able to have the cooking area, or is it easier to say you don't have the shower?
Mm-hmm.
But
You know,
at the same time, you can do an outdoor kitchen outside. Would you consider that your entire property a second dwelling then?
Can't
no,
live outside though.
no. Yeah, that would be an outside, that which would be, I wouldn't be able to stop that.
Right. I think that I would. Okay. I get what you're saying, Bob, and about that, but I still feel like, given the time and effort of looking into it, I would be able to find a way per code to add a kitchen or cooking appliance inside above a garage somewhere. But you're right, it doesn't mention bedrooms, it doesn't mention anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And again, is with the building code, they say units. A unit is a dwelling as well.
Right.
You do a detached and you have a studio apartment. Is that a unit? You know what I'm saying? So that could be, I dealt with that down in Chatham, where they said that they could not have a cooking appliance. Because, and it was just one huge, well, when I say huge, they had a half court basketball court in there. Notre Dame thing. Oh my God, it was unbelievable. But they had this second floor that they, even though they had all the doors, they considered that private to, it could be a bedroom, but they put a cooking facility, in there as well. So
You have to eat after you play basketball, right?
yeah, no kidding. But my first ruling was no cooking facility in there.
Okay.
But that was one of the issues I had down there, where the administrator came in and said, oh, they could put it in. It's like, well, you don't have the authority to do that, blah, blah, blah. But yes, I think a cooking facility in another structure, an accessory building, would be, I think if that's written down that we can say we can stop that, then that
Okay.
would eliminate it being a dwelling.
What happens if it's a pool house and they want to put a grill in there, or they have, say, an overhead door that opens up?
That would, a grill,
Or a stove, I'll call it an oven, a pizza oven.
okay, so now, yes, they may have a shower, but they don't have bedrooms, they don't have a living space in there. A dwelling there's like 6 things you have to have. You have to have all of them to be a dwelling. I'll double check what they all are, and I can let you guys know. But you have to have all of those to be a dwelling. A shower, cooking facilities, you have to have a living space, you have to have a bedroom, bedroom area. I mean, there were a number of things that, you have to have to become a dwelling.
And I don't know if you're gonna come up with a way to go around, get everything, because that's
Right.
what people pay lawyers $300 an hour to argue
Right.
rules. And you have a rule, and that's why you want to get around it. You pay a lawyer to come up with a way around it. But I think the idea is to cast the net big enough to catch 90% of people, and not catch is the wrong word, to cover, so the bylaw adequately covers 90% of the cases as much as you can. And there's always going to be an outlier, or what if outlier, that somebody's going to try to come up with and
Yeah.
use. We're seeing it on the solar side, Jeff, as you know.
Yes.
People
Oh,
are
yeah.
trying to come up with something for everything. So
They're
if you
very
can come up with
creative.
something that covers most cases, I think you're in the best shape.
That was always my big thing, not to jump, but my big thing on solar is when someone puts 180 panels out there, that's not for the resident, that he's making money, and selling that power. And to me, that's commercial. Now you have a residential property and they put that in. Now, we're allowing a commercial structure. The structure would be the solar panels on a residential property. I mean, I personally don't agree with that, but I was talking to Kevin about it, and for that solar part, it's maybe it should be on a vacant lot that you could put things in. You know, we'd have to have a discussion, a separate discussion on that.
I absolutely agree with you, but you're right. That's a discussion for a different day.
But again, the apartment is, it's a tough one. And again, it's only going to stop the honest people with all that. You know, people try to do it on, you know, do these things without permit. And then when they're caught, then I got to go in and, you know, and figure out how to basically eliminate a dwelling itself.
I think that at the minimum we can do is what is the keeping that they have to keep it as one unit, not one living space, not separated. That to me is the biggest deterrent, is that it has to be kept one living space, because who wants to rent an apartment where people can walk from one area of your house to the next area of the house and they're not part of your family.
Right. And usually I would say, and it's really not really stated in the bylaw, but that opening, I tried to get to a 4-foot opening. And the main reason of that is it's very tough to put a door in just to slap it in if it's 4 feet.
Right.
If it's a 30-inch, they slap a door in there and they're done. It's easy. I'm trying to not make it as easy, but keep it, like you said, it's all one unit. That's why they call it an in-law.
Right.
And
I think that
the things that having an accessory apartment, with the majority of the people out there, they think now that is legal and they continue with that. But having an in-law apartment, it's now they get somebody else in there. They know they're doing something wrong, you know, so their defense is, well, it was an accessory apartment. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Well, that's the difference between that and a duplex. A
Mhm.
duplex is a permanent structure that's separated off, that can be rented, it can be whatever. It is a separate freestanding dwelling on one property versus a
They'd
transient
have different
accessory.
frontage, they'd have different volume
Correct.
of
Lot size,
yes, and there's also a firewall in between that.
right. And I think that's where it comes back to the kitchen, is chance of fire, chance of having issues. Putting them in the garages upstairs, if the breezeway doesn't connect on the second floor, there's no way to break that, you know, open it, keep it open up, because you're gonna walk through a breezeway into a garage, climb a set of stairs, and then be able to enter into the accessory apartment, versus a breezeway that connects maybe a second floor to the second floor, where you could, you know, when you decommission it, you have to leave it open, and now it becomes like a giant open bedroom area or a game room, as you will.
Right.
You know,
I think that when 119 applied for theirs, the doorway that they had at the bottom of the stairs, I asked him if he could remove that, open it up, because now it's an in-law and they can have, you know, access up there, but the stairway gave them that privacy as well. They
Right.
did have a bedroom up there. And now he's going to be building another set of stairs egress. To go, you know, for egress, because it's called a in-law apartment.
Right.
So, you know, they definitely need 2 egresses there, kind of remote from themselves, so.
oh yeah.
All right, Rob. So I guess you want them to remove the kitchen then.
Not the whole kitchen, no. To me, it specifically speaks to cooking appliance, and that's what I would key on, is they have to remove the cooking appliance or access to the cooking appliance. But the whole kitchen, whether you have kitchen cabinets in your living room or not, that's up to you, however your lifestyle is. But unless we change the bylaw, Because I just don't want to do anything that's contradictory to the bylaw. So if the bylaw is cooking appliance, then that's great. We make them take the cooking appliance out. I'm not opposed to saying now you can't have a doorway separating the main from the accessory. The doorway has to come out too. I'm not opposed to that either. But unless we want to take the cooking appliance term out of the bylaw, I'll suggest we take it out of the bylaw and just go with something else like a doorway that has to remain open after the decommissioning. I mean, that's an option too. I don't care what we do.
I
I'm
don't know.
open to the opinion of the board.
All the in-law apartments that I have done, I have eliminated a doorway going to it. In the past, people have doors. The first day that I was here, I did a in-law apartment. I went through with the police. They had a door there, and they had a lock on it. And I said at that point, I said, well, you got to remove that lock because you're supposed to have access. And the more I looked into it, talking to my state guys, they said that, again, it's up to every town. But they felt that if it was an open area, walk area, opposed to having a door, that would meet more into a in-law apartment opposed to what they call accessory apartments. That makes sense.
That makes sense to me. But Bob, to Bob's point, I agree with him 100% that since what it says in the bylaw now, the cooking appliance, I mean, I think that's what we have to go by. However, I do want to make a suggestion and say at the fall town meeting, we remove cooking appliance and add verbiage for the doorway like we've been discussing.
Yeah.
I think that's what we should do. However, right now, we can't really, I mean, Jeff, I think that's a good idea to remove the door, but if someone comes back to you and says, I don't want to do that, it's going to be tough for you to say, well, you have to, especially if they look at the bylaws. So that's all I'm saying. That's the only thing we have right now is the cooking appliance, like Bob has been mentioning.
I have sat down with a lot of the contractors and not design it, but mention, well, if you do a hallway, a 6 or 7 foot hallway, it kind of gives it that separation before they get into the in-law. If it's on the first floor, stairway would be the same thing. So that's kind of how I'm trying to keep that doorway. Or if someone's going to fight, yeah, I'd probably have to back down a little on that. But my suggestion first would be to do that. And I haven't had any fight back on that. So
that's good.
I think I would continue that until I have some, some whatever the pullback on that.
Yep.
So, I mean, because people also too, like you say, taking out the kitchen, they cooking, because then they'll say, well, I want a wet bar. A wet bar basically is the sink and that without the cooking.
Right.
So, and you can have a refrigerator right next to it. So and you really can't tell someone that they can't have a wet bar in the house.
Nope.
Right.
You just can tell them they can't have a stove.
Yes.
The way the bylaw currently reads.
The way the bylaw is reading. Separate living area with cooking facilities.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I even wrote the bylaws today, I don't even know if I would say living area with cooking facilities. I may only allow one bedroom. I may say you only allowed one bedroom for an in-law apartment and a kitchen area, I would say, so.
It's separate living area. So
It's separate, and I would yes,
you could
Rob,
have,
I would say that
if it's all one big
space.
living area, you can have 3 kitchens if you want. It says
Right.
separate living area with kitchen, with cooking appliance. So the separation is what makes it an in-law. And the separation would be, like Jeff said, a door. That once it gets removed, it's no longer a separate living area.
Correct. I would look at it that way because it's tough for me to deny someone that they want to put a kitchen down in the basement because they're out on the pond, the ground level, come
Yeah.
in, they can cook there. But if they didn't have that door up top, you know, it's
Now it's
considered-
congruent to the rest of the house. It's all
Yeah.
one big living area.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
there's nothing against that. It says separate living area. Separate living area would be a separation.
right. So
So,
I think at this point, I'm gonna still, when I see an in-law, I'm gonna suggest that they don't have a door. If they fight back, then
You
way the
deal with
back,
that case.
they could have a door, but they can't have a lock on it.
Yeah, okay.
If they're an in-law apartment, they should have a door. If they're not an in-law apartment, then they would have to be open and not separated.
Right, right.
Right. They got, if they have an in-law apartment, they gotta come for a permit and be permitted and go through the process. If they're not, then it has to be decommissioned and the door has to come out.
Yeah,
Permanently taken out though, not just taken off the hinges. It needs the
You
jam
have to
needs to
remove,
come
you
out.
have to remove the door, you have to remove the frame, and,
Yeah.
and you have to return that opening to a drywall opening.
Correct.
That's,
and I would push to try to get the 4-foot opening if it's possible.
okay. I mean, you can only stop people doing so much, you know that. You've been doing it for long enough, you know? Everybody's gonna, bill inspector's going, we're just gonna put that door back up, but at least we gotta have some kind of, deterrent for people.
Yeah, the only thing that's really gonna stop them is unfortunately if they had a fire and the insurance company says, nope, sorry, we're not paying.
Well,
People
or
are
it
gonna-
comes back to Jeff and they say, hey, you told them to do all this. Did they do it? Yeah, well, I went and inspected it and they took the door out and it was framed over. And then after I left, they reinstalled the door. Well, that's on them. That's not on Jeff. That's not on us. That's on them because they actually went out of their way to change something versus never going and doing the inspection and saying, it is what it is. They got a kitchen. And that would be our dereliction, if you ask me, not to make sure they didn't convert it back to the way it should be and not the way it is. Not
So
that
you would-
the town's culpable because we have qualified immunity, but you know what I'm saying.
So you're thinking we could put a word in the bylaw that would, could we put the decommission inspection? If the permit is not renewed after 30, 60, 90 days, you would be able to do something at that point. But the requirement of the permit is when it expires, that they have to call and schedule a decommission inspection. Would we do something like that?
That makes
And then
sense.
you would, you would make that a requirement of the permit, after 5 years, you're not gonna use it, you're required to do a decommission inspection and brought back to a single living space via opening up the wall or opening up, like you said, case to open and bring it back to a drywall petition.
Now, would you keep also like after 5 years, you would have to have an inspection, whether it's decommissioning it or continuing with the.
Yeah,
they would-
it
don't know if
would
it-
be one or the other. So if you're 5 years,
Yeah.
they don't renew their permit, their license there, then you would do a decommissioning inspection and you would tell them and review with them what needs to be done to decommission the space so it is no longer a separate living space. It becomes a single living space. I think that may be the good verbiage is must be put back to a single living space. Can't be two separate like our bylaw says. Bylaw says separate living area must be brought back to a common or a common living area with the house.
Right,
However we decide, however you feel, you can leave the bylaw as after inspection with the zone enforcement officer that the space is brought back to a single space, and then that leaves you leadway to make the decision yourself on how that can be done.
right.
And, whether it's a case opening or whether
Yeah.
they say, no, we're going to do something different. We're going to close this one up and we're going to put whatever every house is different. Every design is different.
Yeah,
Maybe they have to file a decommissioning permit with you, pay a $50 fee. You tell them, okay, this is what needs to be done and give them 30 days to do whatever, or however the time that you feel is appropriate. And then
Yeah.
you go do the inspection to make sure it was done, and that's covered under the permit fee. Maybe it's one of those type deals. And it goes by whenever the permit expires or is no longer in use. So if they take it out for Jane Doe and Jane Doe moves out, and that's only 3 years, well, that's when it ends, because it's for that person. If Jane Doe, stays there 8 years and they renewed at 5 because she was still there, but then she moves on, passes on, whatever, that's when technically it ends. They're supposed to file with you and say it's done, that, we're not doing it anymore. They're supposed to file the permit. So the wording has to be something in there at the end of the permit cycle, whether it's by time, or whether time's out, or it's no longer needed or in use.
Right, and when I do a CO, I'm trying to get the COs that they've had in every file. I could take that one CO, change the address, and put it to any other house. The COs that I'm doing now, I describe the whole house, 2-story, 1-story.
Right.
And I go a deck in the back, a deck in the front, I do all that. And I'm starting to put down the name of the person for the in-law in that, but I also say in-law apartment is voided after sale of house, or I haven't put 5-year down, but for reinspection, but I'm going to start spelling that out a lot more, and that will give us a little more foothold, because when they even go to sell the house, a realtor supposed to come down and look at the file and see it. And I do know Cindy Brower, she came down and saw one that I did, and she's reading it, says, oh, it's that in-law apartment's expired. So, I mean, that does help. They are supposed to, by law, look at that file, because they are legally responsible for 3 times the cost of the house if they sell it as an in-law apartment and it's not.
Okay.
So, I mean, those are kind of our little footholds that we have to deal with this.
So are we into agreement maybe that, like I was just saying, that I like to keep it vague. That way, when you do an inspection to decommission it, you have a couple of options to tell the homeowner what can be done. I don't know if that makes sense to everybody, or say like after you give it a time, you give it a time frame, when the inspection and when the permit expires, because you know how a lot of people are always late with filing for an inspection for a license, and no matter what it is. So I think I'm running 8 months behind on my inspection sticker right now, just because I haven't done it. So after like 30 days after the permit expires, then an automatic inspection, it triggers an automatic decommission and inspection for you to bring the space back to a single living space.
Right.
And then the option's up to you. Hey, like I said, you can tell somebody to get rid of the stove. I don't have to tell them I'm going to tell them that, maybe, but that's a bullet in your holster. That's a bullet in your gun you can pull out if you want to use it. But you may find the circumstances that you might not want. They may say, no, we don't want it. We're going to put a pool in the backyard, and we're going to use this as a pool, as an area to come in. And we're going to put a double door in here, and we're going to come in, and that's that kind of space. So,
and it could be an either or. It could be, well, back to the one we just did. Well, they're putting a garage in, they're going to put upstairs from a garage. Well, there's no real way to separate to put that back to, part of the main house, because the garage is going to be a separation between the two. Unless the breezeway is 2 stories, which they're not usually, then the breezeway is just going to be, or the attachment's going to be, they're going to walk from there into the garage area where the cars are parked, and then have to climb a set of stairs to a private area that's going to be an in-law apartment. Well, there's no real way to make that part of the main house, because the garage is living space.
Right.
So there, maybe the option is, okay, well, now when you revert it back, take out the stove. You can't, because you're never going to make them build a walkway across or a bridge across to the living space. Or somebody else, maybe it's an upstairs downstairs situation where you can leave the stove in, because you're going to, like you said, have it as a pool area, but you're gonna remove the doorway on the top of the stairs and make it all one floor, it's now no longer separated, it's all one living space. And so they have the option of do either one.
Yeah.
And make
But-
that their option to do, when it expires, I don't think you want to trigger an inspection. I think you want to trigger them that they have to come in and pull an inspection permit. So that
Okay.
way Jeff's not going out there 2 or 3 times because his time's valuable, his time, so the town to do an inspection, normally you pay a fee to do an inspection. So a decommissioning fee, decommission.
Mhm.
So I think you would trigger that they have to come down and pull up decommissioning permit. And then Jeff could tell them what they need to do to decommission it. They can do it, and then he goes and does the inspection, whether it's a $50 fee, whatever Jeff, I don't know how the fee structures work and
I
what we're
think
allowed to
because-
do. and not.
Because I'm gonna be going out twice, going down, telling them what to do, at least a $50 fee.
Well, I'm
Um,
saying, I would say they're coming into you and pulling their permit. So you
Yeah.
can give them a list of what they need to do with a piece of paper right off the top. And then they can go and do what they're supposed to do, and then you only have to inspect one time. Because if you don't need to go there multiple times because they don't do it right, or they have questions or all that stuff. They can come to you. You're a busy person down there, as we both know.
Yeah.
So I'll just say this, I am completely against pulling a permit for a decommission fee, for $50 or whatever. Why would anyone ever do that?
Because they're
Like-
required to.
Required to? We can't find them. You want someone to build this and then just kind of remodel their house and pay a $50 fee? I
Right.
just think that's absurd in my mind. I
Okay.
mean, I could be the only one who thinks that. I'm fine with that, but I just don't like the thought of that. We know what the accessory apartment is for. It's because families, there's a hardship there. It's older parents or something like that, and then you hit them with another $50 decommissioning fee.
Is there a fee now for the in-law? We don't have, if we can do an upfront fee if you, I don't know. I'm throwing that out there,
Well, just
I-
that
I'd be-
meeting tonight was $1,000. It's $250 for a zoning board meeting, and they have to advertise in 2 newspapers. And that's
Yeah.
around $800.
Yeah.
So they
I
paid
wanna-
$1,000 tonight.
Yeah, I want to provide motivation for people to ask you for a decommission inspection. I don't want to kind of like make it difficult for them. And I don't want them to be, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not paying another $50 for them to come and tell me, I just want to say, no, we'll come out and do it. It becomes part of the permit process, whether it's upfront or on the back end, it's still part of the process. Like you, when you go to a project, Jeff, and you have multiple inspections that you have to do on one property before you issue the CO. It could be, when you do an in-law, there's going to be there's going to be one extra inspection 10
Right.
years down the line. It's
So-
part of the permit process, part of
I
My
do
question-
agree with not, I do agree with not doing it. Listen to Nadine. She says, well, I'm here anyway, so I'm getting paid per hour anyways. Hey, every time she says this, no. But on this case, yeah, I don't know if I would do a $50 for an inspection fee. I would make the phone call and set something up and say, hey, can I come down and look, and I can tell you what you need to do or whatever. And kind of work with the people. I think they respect that more.
we just don't want them to start renting it out. That's what we just don't
Right.
want them to do. That's,
Right.
Well-
we don't want to be the Gestapo, you know what I'm saying? But we want them to know that they have to do a decommissioning inspection as part of the requirements of us giving them this special permit. I'm gonna let them know up front.
I'm
And if
trying
they have to,
enemies.
if they have to take the door out and redo the door, are you going to require them to have a building permit to do that? Or is that just going to be a modification that they can do without a permit?
That's a modification they can do without a permit. Anybody can redo a door in the house. That's not structural.
Mhm.
So, I mean, anybody can go through and redo all their doors in the house.
When you say redo the doors, you mean change the door, hanging doors, or you mean take them
Hang-
out
yeah.
and
Yeah.
the jam
take
and
'em out
everything?
and put them in. It's not required for a permit.
Okay.
Take a door out and whatever Jeff decides that individual house needs to make it a single living space at the time of the decommission inspection should be all up to whatever you want to do. I don't think we should tell them up front what they want to do, what they have to do, because every circumstance could be different, you know?
Right.
Like I said, so I would like to leave it up to you at the time of the decommission inspection for that individual house. You can decide at that time, this is the way you can make this a single living space, is if you take that door out, you drop that opening in drywall, and you make that go away, and now that's a living space. You could tell somebody that they need to, you know, do something else, you know, that might not be applicable. You may have to tell somebody they got to remove the stove just the way it's laid out. Different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. Every house is going to be different. You know,
It-
you may
it
have to tell
is-
people they need to put a door in.
It is different. I still have a tough time because I'm always under the impression that
You
you
share some
could have
crackers,
as
Nick, or
many stoves. What's that?
I said Nick's going to share some crackers with us. I'm getting a little hungry too.
You could have as many kitchens in a house as possible. I mean, so it's kind of,
All right, so we'll agree that the kitchen is not the end all, the be all to decommissioning. The end all,
Right.
the be all to decommission is turning it to a single space, a single, you know, a
Right.
common space.
I think what Bob and Jim, what you said, I think if we just cast kind of a larger net in the bylaw, it gives us something a little bit more. Almost it has
Yeah.
to go back to one consistent dwelling, the doorway. I don't know if we want to leave the kitchen appliance in there or not, but it's going to be hard to write a bylaw or modify the bylaw to essentially say the building enforcement official tells you what to do. I know in codes and everything, it does say that the authority having jurisdiction, which is Jeff, does have the right to ask for above and beyond. So I guess that's where Jeff does have some say and say, well, it's right here in the jurisdiction in the IBC. I can essentially ask you for something and make it safer for the town.
Yeah, they write that big book, and at the end of the book, they say up to the local whatever. Well,
Yeah,
what do they?
right. It's
They did a big
lawyers.
deal. You can do all
Lawyers,
this, but it's
right?
all
Yeah.
it's all up to the local building jurisdiction. You know,
All
because he can change anything
interpretation.
that's in here. You know?
Yeah. So I think I like that, and I think that maybe the next meeting, everyone will have plenty of time to think about it, and we can just discuss it further, whether we want to send Nils suggestions on bylaw changing or rewording or whatever.
I think
Would you-
adding a couple words, get a couple words in it, I think it would be fine. We just have to figure out which words to throw in.
Right.
You know, again, I've been here 2.5 years and knowing Freetown, the majority of the people don't want to be told what to do. But they do have to follow codes and things like that. I try to work with everybody as I possibly can, without stepping over bylaws or codes.
So we'll leave tonight saying, all right, we'll leave the bylaw the way it is, but add a paragraph in there
Yeah,
about what happens after the permit expires and
Yes.
how to decommission.
because right now there's nothing really telling anybody,
Right.
you know, what the steps are.
Right. So leave the paragraph that's there, not touch it, don't change it, add to it, and reference it. Is you guys in agreement to that, or
I'm
you're
fine
not
with
in
that.
agreement to that, Nick?
I
You
don't
are.
think so. I think we still need some modification to the paragraph. And I
Okay.
think we just make one comprehensive paragraph.
Redo
And
the whole
what's the-
paragraph. Redo the whole thing.
I'm thinking changing only like 2 or 3 words, that's all, or removing.
Okay.
I just think it has, I don't want to keep it and then just add something below. I think we just need to rework it with some different verbiage or something like that. That's all. Again,
Okay.
I don't have the idea of it right now, but I think something will.
Then just everybody think about it and play with it till the next time we talk
You have
about
to,
it
you're
again.
gonna have to put it in 2 places too. You're gonna have to put it in the definitions, and then you have to put it in the bylaw itself, because it's listed as accessory apartment and what defines accessory apartment and definitions. And then
Yeah.
what's acceptable in the different zones under accessory apartment, and it reiterates it again. So whatever you're right, you're gonna have to make sure it works on both sides.
I understand. Am I the only one on the board that thinks this way? Thinks that it needs to be rewritten with a couple changes, or do you guys want to just leave it alone?
I mean, if you think there's something, I mean, if you got to get a bite at the apple and there's something that you feel in that paragraph that you don't like and you want to change, that would be the time to do it. I mean, I don't feel, you may want to be a little more, less ambiguous and, maybe define a few things a little more so that people understand. You can do that for sure. But I do think like I said, I want to add some decommissioning language in there and what to do. So if there's anything you guys read in here, you're like, no, I don't like this. Let's get rid of cooking facilities and let's just, make it something else, or only allow one bedroom to be added to that space. You can, I would have liked to see only one bedroom added because it's an in-law. It's going to be a couple, it's gonna be one. I don't want to see two people, because then you get a little,
But the in-law, like we just approved, is could be for someone's daughter and kids.
That's what it was.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. You're right. You are correct.
That's what we
It could
just
be-
approved.
Right. Well, that was
no.
a one bedroom that had a den that they had in there.
Well, the homeowner is moving into that, Bob, not the daughter and kids.
No,
I
I
believe.
understand, but that, I mean,
Right.
they could have just swapped it and said, no, we're building one with two
Oh.
small bedrooms. And, one for the wife,
Right.
one for the mother and one for the kid,
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I'll take that back.
I
then.
mean, if
You're
you
right.
wanted
Could-
to
like
do
you
it for
said,
one
could be a
bedroom-
single mother and a child that want to move in. You're right.
You could do it for one bedroom if that's what you wanted to do. You wanted to rewrite it.
No,
I'm
no, you
okay
rethink
with
about
the
it.
way it reads right now is subordinate as the 100 square foot. I'm okay with all of that. My
Yeah.
question and concern is, how do we know these don't go away and they just stay being rented out to other people as a way down the line? So I'm more leaning towards decommissioning.
Mm-hmm.
How could try to catch everything? I don't know how we're gonna do that. So, but I'm open to read anything and to have a discussion with anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing,
I mean-
nothing in concrete there that I live or die on, that's for sure.
I just like to,
Perfect.
I just want to tell people what they have to do when the permit expires.
I don't want to make it too open-ended for Jeff, and I respect Jeff, but he might not be here forever. Right, Jeff? You haven't signed that lifetime contract yet.
Yeah,
And building inspectors, health inspectors, they all change.
Yeah.
And what one person's interpretation is might be totally different than somebody else's. And if we don't have at least a framework for that person to go by, and we just leave it totally open-ended, one person might be tearing out an entire kitchen, where somebody else might be saying, hey, just take the stove out and you can have a wet bar. One
Right.
person might be saying, hey, you need to open this up so it's a 6 foot wide walk area to get into this, so it's a big common area. And somebody else might just say, hey, take out the doorway and you're good to go. Or come up with something totally different. If we leave it too loosey-goosey, you're open to interpretation, and you might not like the interpretation you get.
And we may
Like-
not be on the board forever
Yeah.
either, so it's
Yeah,
the same
right.
thing. We all
I'm
have
hoping
thoughts.
not.
Exactly. So when we make these bylaws, we're gonna make them not for today necessarily, but for the future. And that's more what I was trying to say is.
I'm not
keep that all
for,
in mind.
I'll tell you right now, I'm not for telling people to take their kitchens out. I'm not going to agree to that. So
No, I'm
to
not
me,
either.
that's off. That to me is off the board for me.
But taking
Um,
the stove out, if you can't make it a common area, then I'm not necessarily opposed to that. If you can't open it up and make it common, then there has to be something that makes it not an apartment anymore. I don't know what that is. The facility we just approved, what makes that not an apartment anymore? They're above a 2-car garage. So how
We're
do you
gonna
make
have-
that not an apartment by opening the door? You can't open the door and let gas fumes and motor vehicle fumes go upstairs and choke people out.
Well,
So how do you make
right.
that not
Well,
an apartment?
Jeff has to separate the building wise. Jeff has to separate that space from the garage, no matter what. There has to be a separation wall in the garage to the stairwell. There has to be a ceiling separation. There has to be totally separated fire-wise. So right now,
how does
they're
that not become a garage anymore? How does that not become an apartment anymore?
Well, if
what
you leave
means?
the second floor opens, they walk down the stairs, they walk right into the first floor of the house. That's
But you
one
just said they
even
have to
flow
have
all the way
separation.
through. Well, I'm saying when they turn it over It's not gonna, you have separation right now. There's a door from the garage to the stairwell.
Yeah.
That's separated. You can make a second, people have living spaces above garages that are part of the living space of the house. As long as he fire rates the space between the garage and the living space.
But
Right, if
practically, how
you
does that-
look at the plan on this one, they have a stairwell inside the garage. So that stairwell will be will be separated.
That's not in living space, though, it's in a garage. So that, how do you convert that back to living space as it's part of the main house? That's not separated out of the main house. You can't, because it's separated by a garage. That's not living space.
It's not, you got, if you look at the plan, the staircase, it will have to be, they should open up the main house. There should be an open wall between the main house and the stairwell. The separation for the fire is one wall over where the door is. And
If
then
it's an
that whole
enclosed
staircase,
stairway,
what's that?
if it's an enclosed stairway,
Yeah, I'm
not
just talking about this particular plan in this
open
garage.
stairway.
Right, it would have to be an open stairway to the house from that living space up.
If the stairway's enclosed from the non-living space garage, but if it's an open stairway to the garage, you just walk up the stairs and then you have the door at the top to go.
Yeah,
into
which we
the-
won't, Jeff won't allow that. Jeff won't allow an open
No.
stairway to an apartment up above. That won't fly.
No, not from a garage.
No, that's gotta be all separated.
I
What about a
don't,
bonus room?
that egress.
Bonus room should be has to be separated too.
Yeah, the egress itself is not going into a garage. The only time you can do that is if you were in a basement going up into the garage, and you'd have to have a man door to get out. But
Yeah,
that's,
If you look at their flow, they kept their house open and they walked in, this is all open right through here, all
Yeah.
the way up into the living space. The fire space separation becomes here and all the way down here. And
And
that
underneath.
separates the garage.
And
Yeah.
that gets, what are you taking out to make that all part of the same living space as the house afterwards? You
Th-
can't
this
take out the
particular-
fire.
This particular space, this particular house is keeping this all one space because they are keeping this. They walk from their kitchen and they walk through this cased opening and they walk right upstairs and there's no door up at the top of the stairs or at the bottom of the stairs for this space.
There's no door right there at the top of the stairs?
I don't see, I did not see it. Let's double check you. Maybe,
I don't believe.
no, there's no
They can't
door at the
actually-
top of the stairs right now. So you walk down that stairs and you walk right into the kitchen.
Hmm.
And the separation it comes on the outer wall of that staircase. And that's how they separate the living space from the garage. As I see it. Jeff can correct me.
So the
You do
door,
have an
the-
architect here as well.
separate, a little separate area for the door to get into the garage. So from upstairs, you can come down the stairs and go into the garage. And from the house, you can just not go upstairs, just keep going and get into the garage.
Yeah, but your fire separation wall is on the outer edge of that. That whole staircase would be enclosed with a fire rated door. It
Correct, the
constitutes
bottom
a-
side of it, the bottom
that whole-
side sides.
I assume that whole stairwell when built would be a 60-minute enclosure, you know, as I see it, you know, so.
So looking at those plans, the only thing I didn't see is another egress to get down, to get out from up above.
Yeah, you'll have to work that out with them. They should probably put one right to the outside wall, I would think, run down that stairs and run right out to the outside.
Right, and
Uh.
now here's the thing, if it's part of, and I would never say eliminate that egress door once they have it in, but you can have a room above a garage coming from your living room or wherever and go up, but you need a emergency egress and that would be one of your windows. But for an apartment or an in-law, you have to have doors.
Yeah.
So,
I
but again,
I ran into that with my apartment house that they stopped allowing fire escapes in Fall
Right.
River. And that's why you see in the city now, all the fire escapes now are becoming stairs out of the window. And they're also and they're actually making them take the windows out and put an actual doorway to that aluminum fire escape that's now a stair that runs down to the ground level.
right.
That's happening. I see that happening a lot right now, especially in the city. So
Yeah.
looks horrible, but
Yeah, it's taking up room and a lot of them too are those now stairways might be encroaching on the line, the property line. But I look at it as like bulkheads.
Yep.
They can be encroaching on the line because that's an emergency egress.
Okay,
That's, to me, that's the only exception that would be able to encroach. If it's an emergency egress coming from a basement.
Your porch landings too, right?
well, porches don't count, right? Unless it's got a roof over it.
We ran into that with the Bay Shores.
Right,
Well-
we did, I remember.
What's stopping someone from getting a deck and keep going out and now they're 3 feet from the property line?
I think it's 4 feet I think the cutoff was 4 feet. You have to have a 4-foot landing outside of a door. Anything more than that is extra, and you can't be less than that. So you have to allow them to have a 4 foot, even if it's in a front setback, because we had to have him let up front a 4 foot. He went
Right.
bigger, and that's where it ended up in the zoning board, and it's in front of us because he went, like you just said, a giant deck, and that wasn't allowable. And
Right,
Right.
Paul was gonna make him tear it all off.
So, I mean, that usually when they design the plan, if they have a front porch, that front porch now in another town, they had the stairs come down and that corner of the last step was actually within the setback, the zoning setback. And what they had to do, one way of getting around it is they built up the ground over there and put a slab, a granite stone there and eliminated that bottom step. And that took them away from the side setback.
Mm.
So again, a stairs or steps can pull a whole house inside a flood zone as well.
Yeah.
So anything that touches the flood zone will pull the whole house in. As odd as that sounds, but there is a way around it, I found. You do a detached deck, and then all that is putting a beam up closer to the house, and now that's a freestanding deck.
Yeah.
So, but
Right.
anyway, we want to try to eliminate people from trying to beat the system, beat what's written there. And I think if we add some extra words in there, it could possibly just stop that.
okay. All right, guys, I've done beating this down to, I think we're good for tonight on this subject, so.
I agree. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Happily sec-
adjourn, happily. What do you want to do? You want to talk about this at another meeting, or you guys just want to do a little research and think about it a little more, put some notes down, and maybe on our next ZBA, we see if we want to add it to the agenda and talk about it again, or?
I think that's the way to go, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, cool beans. All right. That's what we will do then. Nick, why don't you make that motion?
I'll need a
Good.
motion to adjourn. Oh, do we need a motion for that?
I don't think we need a motion for that.
No,
Yeah, you
just
can
the
just
motion,
ask- you
just
can
the
just-
motion. We can just add it to the meeting, right?
Yeah, right. You
Like
can
we
ask,
did tonight, yeah.
You just add it to your agenda. You're the chairman, it's your agenda.
Yep, that's what I'll do. That's what we'll do when we get another meeting going. All right, so Nick, you want to make that
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second again.
All right, motion is made and second to adjourn. Roll call vote. Nick Velozza,
Aye.
Rob Joes,
Aye.
Jim Freight, aye. I'm hungry. I've been watching Nick eat crackers all night.
He's
All
a
right, guys.
diabetic, he has to.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks,
All right, guys, have a
Thank
great
you. Good
weekend,
night.
okay? Take care.
Night.
See ya.
Good night.